I am Councillor Christine Ward, Chairman of the Planning Committee. I would now like to hand over to Democratic Services to read the housekeeping rules.
Thank you. Please note that this meeting is being broadcast live on the Council's website via YouTube. It will remain available for a minimum of 12 months. I would remind those in attendance to use your microphones when speaking, but do please remember to turn them off once you have finished. Please also switch any mobiles or laptops to a silent setting for the duration of the meeting. If the fire alarms ring during the meeting, please can everyone leave the room immediately and use the nearest fire exit, but do not use the lifts. Please go to the fire assembly point, which is located at the bottom of the car park by the garages. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any apologies?
We have no apologies.
Yeah, I've noticed that two of them, they're coming in now, I think. As long as they're sitting down before we discuss the first application, that's fine. They come from the same area, so I guess there's some problem somewhere. Right, can we now confirm the minutes, please, for...
8th of October.
Yeah, the 8th of October.
Agreed.
Thank you. Right, here we are. Morning. Can I have declarations of interest, please? Councillor. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to declare application 25100601, the New Inn Main Road, Totton. I personally know one of the applicants that's representing it for today.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Penny. Councillor Wade.
Thank you, Chair. It's application 25100653. Now, it is in my ward, but I have made no comment about it. And although I sit in Hyndon Parish Council, I do not sit in their planning committee. Therefore, there is no prepared interest.
Councillor Dowd, you have Councillor Dunning nameplate in front of you. You might like to remove it.
Oh dear.
Okay, your interest.
More speed, less haste, whatever. Yes, I'm just going to raise the same one, 25100653. It's not in my ward, and I don't attend the parish planning, so I haven't discussed this my item prior to this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And for notices, we will be training immediately after this session. So we'll go to the first application, which is 25/10639, and you'll find that on page 5 of the agenda. We have an update on this. I hope you've all received that update, and there is a further update which will be discussed before the presentation. We do have speakers. We have Mr. Robert Garden, who is the applicant. Supporting him, we have Richard Thwaites and Jim Tuff, who is a fire safety officer. We also have Councillor David Harrison. We'll go ahead with the presentation, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Some updates were circulated prior to committee. There is a further update that I will do verbally to condition 17 relating to flood risk. The only change is that the reference to the flood risk assessment has been amended to reflect the latest flood risk assessment that was submitted. If you want me to read the condition out, I can.
Yeah, okay.
Do you want me to read it out?
Yeah, read it out.
Okay. The development should be carried out in accordance with the approved flood risk assessment and flood risk technical note, flood risk assessment and surface water strategy J15750 NUK XXXX RP Z1 S5 P5 and flood risk assessment technical note brackets amber planning close brackets dated 25th of September 2025. The mitigation measures set out as option 1 of the flood risk technical note to raise all on-site controls and critical infrastructure by 600 millimetres above the 200-year flood level, brackets 4.4 metres above AOD, close brackets, accounting to the lifetime of the development. These approved mitigation measures shall be implemented in full prior to the first operation of the approved development and subsequently in accordance with the scheme's timing and phasing arrangements. The approved measures shall be retained and maintained throughout the lifetime of the development. So the changes is the reference. The rest of the words are as printed. This application is before the Plan Committee as it is a departure from the development plan. This is the general location plan. The application site is located in the Marchwood Industrial Park, opposite the National Grid Marchwood substation. The character of the area is industrial in nature, a mixture of industrial storage and employment uses, as well as the Marchwood substation and waste transfer station. This is the red line plan. It is an allocated site. The overall site area is 3.14 hectares. It has a frontage to East Road and Central Crescent wraps around the side of the site. This is the aerial photograph. You can see the nearest residential properties on Gardeners Close and Byams Road to the rear and an area of public open space. This is the existing site plan. The site is occupied by a number of industrial and commercial buildings of various scales. Some are vacant, elements of open storage and parking. This is the proposed layout plan. The proposal is for a battery energy storage system facility which would connect to Marchwood substation opposite the site. These facilities are considered as essential infrastructure. The proposal would involve the demolition of all of the existing buildings on the site, installation of battery storage units, transformers and associated infrastructure. The proposal is for a 40-year period, which is the operational lifetime of these facilities. It would provide for demand and generation of 200 megawatts of electricity. They allow local grid networks to operate more effectively by storing excess energy in batteries and releasing it to the network when there is peak demand. Battery storage facilities are strongly encouraged in government guidance and the NPPF as a means of increasing energy storage capacity to support the growth of renewable energy. As I said at the beginning, the proposal is a departure from the development plan, and this is the reason for committee consideration. So I'll just mention something about that before I go into the rest of the slides. Policy Econ 1 protects existing employment lands subject to various criteria. Policy MR 5 of the Local Plan Part 2 relates specifically to Marchwood Industrial Park. These proposals would be contrary to policy as they would result in the loss of employment site for the 40-year period of this temporary consent. However, there are economic benefits of the scheme, including the strong encouragement for battery storage in meeting carbon net zero targets, which is reflected in national policy and the NPPF. These benefits have been balanced against the policy conflict and set out in detail on page 12 to 15 of your planning report. It has been concluded that a policy exception can be made in this case. So I'll just move to the proposed site layout. All the plant and equipment will be raised from existing ground levels by 750 mil to address flood risk on the site. The developed area of the site will be 1.6 hectares. There will be 2 accesses from East Road and 1 from Central Crescent. The battery units contained are arranged in pairs, they're shown in green on here, and each would be served by a shared transformer in blue. A 400 kilowatt substation within a compound is located towards the front of the site. The site would be enclosed by 2.4 metre high palisade fencing. 20 CCTV cameras on 4 metre poles would be located mainly around the perimeter of the site. A 4.5 metre acoustic fence would be erected to the rear to mitigate any noise impacts. The Marchwood power line is shown in purple along here, with the 3 metre easement referred to in the report shown in blue hatching. This is the proposed battery unit. There would be 118 units on the site arranged in pairs. They would be 3.75 metres high and painted green. This is a plan of the proposed transformers. 59 units would serve each pair of battery units. The PCS transformer would be 3.75 metres high and the auxiliary transformer 2.86. There would also be welfare unit, spare parts container and control room. All are identical and as shown on this plan. 3.35 metres high. All of these heights allow for the raised plinth to account for flood risk. There would also be 2 water tanks on the site, 2.75 metres high and 5 metres in diameter. This is a contextual elevation looking south. So AA is across this way, looking towards the battery storage containers and transformers across the site. This is looking east. Here you can see the substation and then the battery storage containers across the site, looking in this direction. This is the proposed acoustic fence that has been referred to, 4.5 metres high, and I've put a number of contextual plans here. This is the overall site layout showing the location of the fence to the rear. This is a more detailed plan with the purple line and dots showing the location of the fence, and this is an elevation of the fence. The nearest residential properties are located 70 metres away from the rear of the fence, just for context. Landscaping is proposed as part of the application, although there would be a loss of 4 of the semi-mature ash trees along the East Road frontage to allow for a 10-metre separation from infrastructure. There's significant additional landscaping, hedge planting, native planting and tree planting to the rear that would be included as part of the scheme and considered to be an enhancement to the overall area. Within this, there is also biodiversity net gain secured. Now moving to some photographs. The 4 trees I referred to along the frontage to be lost are these 4 here, 1, 2, 3, 4. The other 4 would be retained. This is the central crescent, the north limb, looking at the existing buildings on the site, and the southeast showing existing buildings, the adjacent site here and some open car parking areas. This is the rear of the site, showing some of the trees that would be retained. This is Central Crescent, looking towards the substation on East Road, so looking from the side of the site. And another couple of existing site context photographs. The recommendation is set out in the slide. The climate change benefits of the scheme, as set out in the report, outweigh the identified conflict with policy Econ 2. A departure from local plan policy can be justified. The visual impact of the development would be acceptable. There would be associated landscaping and economical enhancements, BNG, can be secured. Any impact on residential amenity would be mitigated by planning conditions. The scheme would not result in additional flood risks or drainage issues during its 40-year lifetime. Highway safety would not be prejudiced, and all other health and safety issues have been addressed. The recommendation is grant subject to conditions with the amendments as circulated and verbally reported this morning. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Members, we have questions to the officers or the applicant. Oh, sorry. I'm ahead of myself. Mr. Robert Garden, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Robert Garden. I'm a partner and solicitor from CMS, and I'm representing the applicant BWESS in relation to this application. The applicant has a 2 gigawatt pipeline across the UK and operates one of the country's largest battery storage facilities in Bramley. They are also constructing the 400 megawatt Hams Hall project and 200 megawatt Berkswell project. The application before you this morning is for a 200 megawatt energy storage scheme, which, if approved, will hold enough power to energy to power 1.3 million homes for 1 hour. The government has recognised energy storage as crucial for our energy security. Energy storage will help solve the problem of intermittent nature of renewable energy by storing excess electricity when supply is high and releasing it during peak demand. The NPPF sets out that the planning system should support the transition to net zero by 2050 and that it should support renewable and low carbon energy schemes. The Energy National Policy Statement EN1, which is a material consideration for the application, recognises the key role that storage has to play, and wider energy policy such as Clean Power 2030 Action Plan also supports the development. The proposed development has a grid connection date of 2028, which is an important near-time benefit in meeting the objectives of the Clean Power 2030 Action Plan. and the Council's Climate Change SPD attracts significant weight and supports the proposed development. In terms of site selection, the location for the proposed development is directed by the availability of a substation, and the National Grid Marchwood substation has the capacity to accommodate this connection. The site can connect via an underground cable into the substation using predominantly highway land. In terms of the benefits, over the 18-month construction phase, the proposed development is estimated to generate up to 272 temporary roles on site and in the wider economy, with the gross value of that expected to be up to £24.5 million. And it's estimated that construction workers will spend around £1.8 million in local businesses. During the operational phase of the proposed development, it's estimated there'll be up to 5 full-time equivalent jobs in the New Forest and the wider economy once operational, with a gross value associated with that being £8.5 million. And in terms of energy security, the proposed development can help in supporting the energy security of the 9,040 businesses and 77,566 households in the New Forest. So to conclude, this application will help boost energy security, tackle climate change and help lower energy bills in line with Clean Power 2030, while also providing local benefits. The site is well located with minimal visual impact, and the application is not subject to any objection from statutory consultees, and any matters raised by consultees can be addressed through planning conditions. In respect of Policy Econ 2, the policy team does not raise an objection, and the report to committee concludes that the benefits of the scheme outweigh any conflict. So I hope you join with officers and vote to approve this application. Thank you.
Excellent timing. Councillor Harrison, on behalf of County Council, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll do well to match that. Chairman, I'm not in the first flush of youth, and as a result, I remember the 1970s and the misery of living in a home without electricity. Nobody has asked me to speak today, but this facility is in the Marchwood County Division that I represent. I speak in favour of the recommendation to grant with conditions. I note that there are 3 objections, but honestly, I cannot think of a more suitable site for this and would challenge the objectors to suggest one. There's been very good public engagement. I attended the exhibition and all my questions relating to the fire risk, the flood risk, potential pollution were answered. Chairman, this will benefit 1.3 million households. That's likely to be 3 million people. We know energy security is vital to the country's interest. It involves generating energy from renewables, upgrading the national grid, and this technology, which allows electricity to be stored and used on demand, is exactly what we should be supporting. Please support the application.
Thank you very much. Now we have questions. Councillor Wade.
Thank you, Chairman. I note that Hampshire Fire and Rescue say that once this is made, there can be no more fire safety regulations put in place. And I note in our report that it says here, if I may just say this, and it talks about spacing in between the containers, and it says, however, this can be secured by a planning condition requiring a detailed battery safety management plan, which I notice is in the payment further, an emergency response plan, and so the Fire and Rescue have made no further comment. Can I just have confirmation that that management plan that is in place meets the criteria that Hampshire Fire and Rescue have suggested for spacing in between the batteries? That's all, just for pure safety reasons.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, condition 15 is a pre-commencement condition asking for those details to be submitted and agreed, and we would consult Hampshire Fire and Rescue on those details when they are submitted. So I can confirm that your question is answered, that we would be securing, ensuring the fire safety is meeting all the relevant standards for this particular facility.
Thank you. We do have Jim Tuff to answer on fire safety. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, we will be developing a detailed battery safety management plan. The current separation distances, if we lean back into the FM Global data sheet that NFCC quote in their planning guidance, is 1.5 metres for lithium ferrous phosphate cell technology.
Councillor Sleep.
Thank you, Chair. Can I thank the officer for a good presentation? A couple of things I wanted to ask about was, my concern is sound, from an industry background. Have we got any history on how much is potentially likely to happen on this, on a site this large? And the concern is, you've obviously sussed it, that we've got to have acoustic fencing there. The wind prevails the sound away from us, from the private housing, the wind direction. But we've had this talk in there about the fence being reduced to 3, and it's gone to 4.5, which obviously is belt and braces. But is there a history that we could say definitely that the neighbours aren't going to hear this humming noise that we do get overnight from these facilities?
Thank you. I just refer you to the section of the report, which I'm sure you've read. A noise impact assessment has been submitted, which considered all of the noise, background noise, existing noise levels, appreciating that it is an industrial area. That site may have not been used for its full capacity for at the moment or for many years. So it could be that sort of background noise level could be increased. The worst case scenario has been put forward in the noise impact assessment, and it's on that basis that the 4.5 metre fence has been recommended and put forward as mitigation. It was originally 4 metres. It was increased by 0.5 metre to allow for the equipment being raised for the flood risk reason. So it is covering the worst case scenario, and it's when the cooling equipment fires up that there could be a background hum, but it's securing a low level impact that is no worse than existing situation. There is also a condition on noise levels as well as implementation of the noise barrier. Condition 6 on noise levels, the noise rating from fixed plant and equipment, which reflects what's in the noise impact assessment, and also the erection of the acoustic barrier before the first operation of the site.
Okay, so you're happy then?
Yeah.
Councillor Hawkins.
Yes, my question to the fireman or the fire person is, what fire defence have you got in this area?
Yes, Chairman. You talk about fire in the actual BESS containers themselves. Yes. Okay, the BESS containers are monitored 24/7 by a remote operating control room. All the data from the cells is multiplexed out through a 5G connection, and then that's backed up by an ether cable to this operational control room, and they monitor temperature, voltage, charge in, charge out, cell balancing. In addition to that, the units themselves are semi-autonomous, so if they do feel that they get into a stress position, they will shut down that particular battery in that particular rack and take no charge and deliver no charge. In addition to that, there are gas sensors built into the enclosures that detect slight increases in hydrogen. Should that occur, they then sweep the internal of the enclosure and disable or isolate the charge in, charge out. Should that not rectify the situation and a flame develops or a flame front develops, there is built-in fire detection. It's an infrared system, and that will then initially swamp the whole of the enclosure with an asphyxiating gas, so an extinguishing medium, and that is generally followed up by an aerosol system as well, which acts as a cooling medium. And at that same time, the operational control room will be contacting the fire and rescue service that they have a situation developing. All enclosures are a minimum of 1 hour fire rated under a guidance document called UL 9540 and the long-term burn test, and that's driven by US guidance under NFPA 855. So all imported BESS units into the UK tend to be UL 9540 certified, and they follow the guidance in a sister document called UL 1973, which is safe design of BESSes. And this is carried out because of the absence of UK directed BESS safety documentation.
Is that comprehensive? I was going to say. Did you actually understand all that? very comprehensive explanation. Thank you. Are there any more questions? In that case, we'll go into debate. Councillor Frampton.
Madam Chairman, I would like to propose the recommendation on the paper to approve.
Chairman, I would like to second the motion to approve. Clearly, this is a facility that we're going to build more of in the future, and we are, I think, very secure that it's going to be made safely. I think that's a very comprehensive response. But we need to look forward, and this sort of development, especially to look after renewable energy, is something we want to encourage and we should support completely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dowd.
Yes, it is a balance, and obviously employment is one issue there. There are limited sites for this kind of storage, and the infrastructure along the waterside isn't really up for purpose at the moment. So this is a necessary development. So on balance, this would appear to be the right sort of development in a place that can accommodate it. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, can I go to Councillor Hawkins first?
Thank you, Chairman. The only remark I take some concern is when the gentleman said it'll be cheap energy. No. Depending what government's in is whether it's cheap energy.
I think we'll move on from that one. Councillor Sleep.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. But once again, my only issue was the same with the neighbours. And if, by explanation, that the battery units don't make a humming noise, I was concerned about the number of them in a particular area. And if it's the cooling systems that create the noise, that's consistent with other units. So it seems to be solved. And the 4.5 metre fence is going to be a good job for the neighbours, I think. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to say anything? In that case, come back to Mr. Garden. You have 1 minute to respond.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'll be short and sweet and not the full 1 minute this time. I think we've set out the need and the benefits, and thank you for the debate. I hope you vote to approve the application. Thank you.
Councillor Harrison?
Sometimes it's better when I say nothing.
It's nice to have you here. We'll go to the vote. The recommendation is to grant subject to conditions. That's been proposed by Councillor Frampton, seconded by Councillor Wade. We go to electronic vote. Please vote now. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes, that's it. Yep, we're there. I did. Okay. Okay, that's unanimous and that has been granted. Thank you very much. We'll move on to our next application, which is on page 39 of the agenda. 25/10653, Field House, Nodes Way, Dibden Purlieu. we do have Mr. Stephen Shergold, the applicant, will be speaking on this. So we'll go over to the presentation, please.
I'm here today to bring to committee planning application 25/10653 Fieldhouse Nodes Way. It's brought to you today because the recommended decision from officers is for refusal, which is contrary to the Parish Council's recommendation of approval. So this sets out the red line and the site context. Fieldhouse is a sort of large detached dwelling situated in a large residential garden, which was originally subdivided from the property known as Chilgrove. The proposal is for there's a site context location. And you can see it's a very verdant area, mature trees, large gardens, and sort of large detached dwellings. So the proposal is for a detached 1.5-storey double garage and garden with an office space above. So the overall dimensions of the proposal is a 12.5 metre long building with a 6.2 metres wide to a maximum height of the eaves is 5.7 metres. The floor area of the building will be, in total, including the first storey, 117 square metres, and the ground floor will be 77.5 square metres. So just to put that in context, 77.5 square metres is the average floor space of a bungalow according to the English Housing Survey. So it is a considerably sized detached dwelling. Outbuilding. It will be constructed out of glazed windows for the garden room, bifold doors, double garage doors at the front. The tiles will match the tiles of the host dwelling with clad in timber. And here's an elevation drawing to show the overall look. It's quite an attractive design, and if we go on some photos in a minute, it does complement the host dwelling well as a design. In terms of the site context, the site is actually visually pretty obscured from a public highway, so it wouldn't really adversely impact the character of the area in terms of its view and from Nose Way or from Lying Walk around the corner. So out of context, this is the existing dwelling. It is a sort of a large kind of chalet bungalow itself with this linked garage, and the eaves of the proposed new garage will be to the same height. So complementing the host dwelling, but the issue being its proximity to a neighbouring boundary. So as you can see, here's some site photos. The property is well set back from the road. It's got a generous front driveway and parking spaces. It's well treed. The garage is in close proximity to 2 protected oak trees on the site. After some initial consultation with the tree officers, the applicant has provided an arboricultural method statement and construction method, which has satisfied the concerns of the tree officers, and they are happy to support this application subject to construction method conditions. So this is the proposed siting of the outbuilding. There will be the partial loss of this young garden hedge. There was some concerns, I think, by an objector about loss of a hedgerow. I think they thought the boundary hedge was being removed. As my understanding, that will remain in place. The boundary hedge is just this newly planted hedge, which, given its age and its monoculture of a single species, it doesn't have great ecological value, so there's no real issue with the partial loss of that hedge. And here's a sort of a 3D rendition of the dwelling, outbuilding, and you'll get the idea of the cladding and glazing. And that's a view from what would be the garden room towards the host dwelling. So the impact of concerns and the reason why we're recommending refusal is the concerns it has on the neighbouring property. So this is the view from the property known as Lyme Cottage, and the outbuilding will be pretty much the whole length of this part of the boundary here, which is about approximately 40% of the southwest boundary of Lime Cottage. And you can see the height of the apex of the garage there. That is the height of the proposed outbuilding. It will be set 1.1 metres back from that boundary, but even so, it's still quite close. So overall, the concern is the proximity. Sorry, I've gone back one way. Nope. Sorry, driver error. Go back to the photos. So here you go. Here's a bit of a blacklist image here. It shows you the proximity to both the western boundary of the site, eastern boundary of the site, and the southern boundary there. And it's this relationship to Lime Cottage which is causing concerns. Back to my pictures. So overall, it is deemed that this the proposal would create a significant sense of enclosure and would be overbearing to neighbours, specifically Lime Cottage, which would be contrary to specifically to policy ENV3 criterion 2, and therefore it's recommended for refusal.
Thank you very much. We come to Mr. Stephen Shergold. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. Good morning. I'm speaking in support of our application for a new garage, garden room and office above at Fieldhouse, Nodsway, as the officers displayed for you. The design for this proposal has been approached with care and sensitivity, ensuring that it complements the style and features of the existing dwelling while remaining clearly subservient to the main house. The existing garage has recently been granted permission to convert into living space. The existing garage roof has also been redesigned with dormers to match the house, and the proposed attached garage has been designed to reflect this style. The roof line slopes away from the neighbouring boundary, and there are no proposed fenestrations to the rear elevation, ensuring privacy for all surrounding properties. Having reviewed the officer's report, I note that the single point of objection relates to policy ENV3. However, this objection appears wholly subjective and, in my view, not supported by the factual context of the site. Firstly, the mature oak tree in the garden of Lime Cottage already dominates the visual character of the area, long before any consideration of neighbouring structures. The garden of Lime Cottage is generous in size, as confirmed in the officer's report, and there is a 21-metre separation between its rear elevation and the proposed garage ridgeline. Given the distance, it is difficult to accept that a single-storey structure with loft space could be considered overbearing. In fact, the existing balcony at Lime Cottage directly overlooks this area from a high level within our ridge height, yet this has been deemed acceptable. Our proposal would, if anything, reduce overlooking and restore some privacy for both properties. During our meeting with the case officer on site, no tangible or quantifiable reason for objection was identified. The concerns remain subjective rather than evidence-based, with all measurable criteria otherwise satisfied. By contrast, the Parish Council reviewed the plans and consultee comments in detail and reached a Part 3 recommendation support. Councillors found the proposal to be well designed, complementary and without harm to the character or amenity of the area. My wife and I both run our own businesses and as such occasionally need to work from home, and the office space above the garage is essential to maintaining our home and work balance, providing dedicated workspace without encroaching on our family living areas. The proposal supports sustainable home working while protecting privacy and ensuring our home continues to meet our needs going forward. I respectfully ask the committee to follow the Parish Council's recommendation and grant permission. And just to add another clarification for the officer, it's not 5.5 to the eaves, it would be 5.5 to the ridge. It is a single-storey building with loft space. I think that's probably an important thing to clarify. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Members, do you have questions for the applicant or officers? Councillor Wade.
I've got a question for the officers, actually. If this was passed, what in planning terms would need to happen for it to be converted to a fully fledged living property house? What would they need to go through?
It would have to be subject to another planning application should it be converted to overnight residential accommodation.
It's not change of use then, it's just...
No. What's interesting is the host dwelling doesn't benefit from permitted development rights either when it was originally consented back in the late 90s. So they are fairly planning restricted on that site, what they can do under permitted.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Sleep.
Thank you, Chair. To the officer, I noticed on the pictures that you've taken, that the garage obviously wasn't used with a wood stacked in front of it, and it's been answered that it's gone subject to planning, and now that's living accommodation. So this development would have 2 garages in it for the whole of the property, rather than the existing garage that was in the property, which is now for living space.
The existing garage has just been subject to a planning application to convert into residential accommodation. That has been recommended for approval. There's no neighbour issues or character issues with that. So it's assumed that they will convert the current garage to residential.
Are there any more questions? Then we'll go into debate. Councillor Frampton.
Thank you, Madam. I think my observation problem would be the height. 5.8 to the ridge is quite a substantial building to put right on the boundary with a neighbour. So when we were looking at the neighbour's view across, yes, you're seeing the house, but what you're actually seeing in the distance is, I'll say, not unattractive, angular, different parts of the existing house in the distance, whereas putting the rear right up tight, all you're going to be seeing is just one solid slab of tiles and brick. And I know no one is entitled to a view, but it's whether or not that's going to be a detrimental to the amenities of Lime Cottage. And I think probably because of its bulk and scale, I mean, certainly in principle, I'm for home working, and I wouldn't be against a building being there if it was not so tall. I think it's just that little bit too big in its height, and that's why I'm going to be going along with officers. But as I say, in principle, I think it's okay. It's the bulk. It is the bulk. It's definitely the bulk.
Councillor Davies?
Yeah, I don't know if that was a proposal, but I think I would probably second that. I think, sadly, the sheer scale of the building on the boundary is unacceptable, and I think we have to look at ENV3 of the local plan on that. So I would say, regrettably, it is one for refusal. I don't think there's a principle against it. I think if it comes back and it's less of a bulk, I think then it becomes much more up for debate. I think as it stands at the moment, it simply isn't acceptable for the residents of Lime Cottage.
Thank you. Councillor Sleep.
Thank you, Chair. Disappointing because it's a nice style, nice design, but my concern is just size and proximity to the other property fence line. And if the approach was to actually, disappointingly, because it's a bungalow size, and at the moment it looks like a double garage bungalow, or it would be. I mean, it's a very effective looking place, but I think it needs to be more successful, it needs to be smaller than that, sadly.
Thank you. Councillor Wade.
Well, John, I'm a bit torn by this. Now that I have the security that it requires planning permission if it was needed to be converted to another dwelling, you know, that concern, because I remember, it's terrible, isn't it? I can remember when the original house was built, and that was backland development, and there was a somewhat many discussion over that. And I'm thinking, well, is this backland development part 2? But the fact that there are those planning issues, it has to go for planning permission. I'm somewhat reassured by that. And I take the point about, you know, if you're going to convert the garage to living space, you know, or whether you want the original one in your house, then you want a new garage, and you might not put an office over it. I can quite relate to that. The problem is, it's rather large. And I have total sympathy for the view, so I'm slightly torn bit on this one, because I can see the logic for having it there and all the rest of it, but it is very large, and it is like a small house, but it's performing a useful function in a space that is owned by the property. So I'm still torn on this one.
Does anybody else have anything to say? Well, the recommendation is to refuse. Councillor Frampton, were you proposing that?
Yes,
And Councillor Davis, were you seconding that? Okay. So I'll come back to the applicant. You have 1 minute to respond.
So thank you. So just for some context, the actual current house is only actually 2 bedrooms. So the reason we're trying to make this conversion so we can sustain it long term, and the downstairs is because we need to effectively create annexing for my parents, or probably my wife's parents. They're both in their elderly. If we, you know, the debate that we're in is how much do we drop this point? We've kept it to the minimum so we have the maximum functionality. We can put that office space. If we shrink it a little bit, we've still got an object that they're going to look at. It's going to be similar to scale, yet it's lost most of its functionality. And that seems non-productive for anybody then. That's a compromise in all where we don't achieve it. So they'll still see this sloping roof. There's no wall, because if you go back to any of the pictures, that you'll see that the hedge height, the height of my 3-metre high van, so it's only the roof sloping away. If we dropped it by a foot, it's still there, yet we then lose the biggest part of the functionality. We have to then work indoors again, which is what we were trying to separate. But thank you.
Thank you very much. Members will go to the vote. So the recommendation is to refuse. That's been proposed by Councillor Frampton and seconded by Councillor Davis. We'll go to the electronic vote now. Thank you. Is there one more? I think we've got one more. No, we've got, no. Okay, that's fine. So that has been refused. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Our next application is the New Inn, Main Road, Totton. Application number 25/10601. You'll find that on page 47 of the agenda. And we have 2 speakers objecting, and Councillor Harrison and the agent. First of all, we'll go to the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. So the application reference is 25/10601, and the application relates to the New Inn Public House in Hounsdown. It's being referred to Planning Committee because the recommendation to approve is contrary to the views of the local ward councillor. So moving on to the red line plans. The red line plan submitted shows the outline of the site. This includes the pub building and the pub garden area at the back. So you can see the site is outlined in red where my cursor is. It's within the defined built-up area of Totton. It's around 0.6 miles from the town centre boundary on Runbridge Street. This aerial photo shows the site within the context of the built-up area, and you can see there's a protected tree which is on the southern boundary of the site. So the site is occupied by a pub, which is a sui generis use. There's parking at the front of the site, and then there's the rear pub garden area. The building fronts onto Spices Hill, which is, and it's on a no-through road, which is set at a lower level than the main dual carriageway, accessed from Jacob's Gutter Lane. The character of the area is mixed, but is predominantly residential, with a convenience store which is located next to the pub. Jacob's Walk is a modern housing development of detached and semi-detached properties, and the pub garden backs onto Jacob's Walk. The existing plan, which has been submitted by the applicant, shows the existing layout of the site, the main pub building and the pub garden area behind. There is not currently any vehicular access to the rear from Jacob's Walk, with the pub garden being accessed through the pub. So this is the submitted proposed site plan, which proposes the conversion of the public house to 3 dwelling houses, which would be accessed from Jacob's Gutter Lane, Spices Hill, as the pub is at the moment. One property would be detached, the other forming a pair of semi-detached properties. The application then also proposes the addition of 2 houses within the rear pub garden area, which will be accessed via a new vehicular access from Jacob's Walk, together with associated parking. The application proposes physical alterations to the pub building to facilitate the change of use, and I will show you those in the following slides. And then there are alterations proposed to the overall site layout, which includes the subdivision of the site to the rear, and then associated fencing to create the rear garden boundaries. The existing frontage of the site is hard surfaced at the moment, and there's proposed additional landscaping for an amended parking layout. So just taking you through the existing elevations of the pub building. So the pub is considered to be a non-designated heritage asset, and the majority of the pub will be retained as part of the proposal. There are some modern additions, so you can see there's a flat roof addition, link addition here, and some pergola features at the back, and this staircase and doorway at the back, which are proposed to be removed. If we move on to the proposed elevations, this shows the removal of that staircase and the removal of the modern flat roof addition to create this detached dwelling, and then a pair of semi-detached within the existing building. This elevation shows that it's broadly the same, so that you've got a window here. This is existing, and then proposed just shows the removal of one of those windows, but everything else remains the same. This just shows, this is the elevations between the proposed detached and the proposed pair of semis. So there's a couple of roof lights being inserted, and there are a couple of more windows being inserted on this side elevation, and any overlooking issues have been considered, and that's set out within the officer's report. Again, this just shows the existing ground floor of the building, and then the proposal shows that modern link between the 2 buildings would be removed. This is the existing first floor plan, and the proposed. So there's no changes to the first floor, just externally it's internal, and then obviously some minor fenestration changes. Proposed roof plan there shows the insertion of the 2 roof lights. And then the following couple of slides and floor plans of the new units, which will be in the rear garden area access from Jacob's Walk. This shows, as I said, the floor plans of those new units. So just taking you through some of the photos of the site. So this is looking from Jacob's Gutter Lane towards the site. Within, this is the convenience store, so this shows the existing building through. And then this is the pub building from the front, and then the rear boundary of the site. This is within the rear pub garden area, so the 2 new properties would be located in this location, with the removal of some vegetation, but the retention of the TPO tree. This just shows the relationship between the closest neighbouring properties, Jacob's Gutter Lane. And then this is the rear of the pub building, This would be the staircase that would be removed and that door blocked up as part of the proposal. So officers recognise the proposal would result in the loss of a public house that does provide an important local facility, which has been echoed by the letters of objection that we have received and the comment from the local ward councillor, and that's all set out within the officer's report. So on pages 52 to 54, the assessment of the loss of the pub has been made. In summary, it's been justified by the applicant through a marketing assessment and viability report that the pub is no longer economically viable and there's been limited interest in the pub. There's been no evidence submitted to the contrary that leads officers to believe that the findings of the viability report and marketing assessment are unsound. Evidence has been provided showing the amount of users of the pub has reduced over time. It's considered the pub has been marketed for sale at a reasonable rate for a period of at least 10 months. And it is noted there are alternative community facilities and spaces for events or functions within the local vicinity. The proposal would deliver a sustainable form of development with 5 new dwellings proposed within the built-up area of Totton, which would be sympathetic to the local context and to the existing building, which is considered to be a non-designated heritage asset. The proposals would be beneficial in ensuring that the non-designated heritage asset is retained within a viable use. The proposal would have an acceptable impact upon the character of the area, trees, ecological interests and neighbour amenity, which has been set out again within the officer's report. So on balance, it's recommended that delegated authority be given to the service manager, development management, to grant permission, subject to the completion of a planning obligation, entered into by way of a Section 106 agreement to secure the habitat mitigations, and the imposition of the conditions set out within the officer's report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that presentation. We'll come to Mr. Jake Russell first, the agent. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the officer for the very good presentation. My name is Jake. I'm the Planning Director at Cordage Group and chartered member of the RTPI. And I'm working on behalf of our client for this, which is Punch Pubs & Co. As the officer said, it's a scheme for conversion of the pub to 3 self-contained dwellings with the construction of 2 new build dwellings to the rear. Now, I'd like to begin by recognising there is a strength of feeling around the loss of the pub, as there always will be, and the applicant would not dispute that at one time the New Inn was a well-loved and, more importantly, well-used community facility, and it is regrettable, therefore, that it is no longer financially viable. The viability and marketing report the officers alluded to, prepared by Savills, who are industry specialists in the licensed sector, clearly demonstrates the economic reality that the pub has no future, nor has it attracted any credible interest from alternative pub operators. The site was placed on the market on the 16th of December last year, originally at a price of £525,000, and then it was reduced in May to £495,000. There were 12 inquiries across that period. 1 was from a pub operator, and after they carried out their due diligence, they stepped away from the process, which I think is indicative of the inherent non-viability. Now, the evidence before you from Savills shows a consistent decline in trade since about 2015. Savills have used BCIS figures to estimate that the cost of reinstating a sort of viable public house would be around the mark of £400,000. And even after that investment, the Savills have estimated that the operator could hope to make £22,400 a year, which is less than the national living wage. So I'd like to ask who, if anybody, would invest the best part of £500,000 to make £22,000 a year. Policy DM19, a local plan, allows for the loss of public houses where it can be demonstrated that the use is no longer viable and that alternative facilities exist within a reasonable proximity. In this case, the test has been clearly met. There are alternative community spaces nearby, including Hounsdown Community Centre and Colbury Memorial Hall, and there's a range of other pubs further towards the centre of Totton. Now, the proposal has been acknowledged by your officers as acceptable in terms of design and heritage, with the proposal retaining the building's NDHA character and ensuring the long-term maintenance of this, the long-term economic viable use. Hampshire County Council have raised no objections, as have all of the other technical consultees. So, in that regard, no objections from any other consultees. Now, I think while the loss of the pub is regrettable, the evidence that its continuation is no longer realistic, the evidence confirms that its continuation is no longer realistic. proposal represents the most appropriate and sustainable future for the site and crucially aligns with both local and national policy. It makes a modest but valuable contribution towards addressing the Council's 1.5-year housing land supply as recognised in your officer's balanced and thorough report. And I therefore respectfully invite members to follow the recommendation of the officer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have two objectors, Mr. Craig Gourmet, is it Gourmet? And Mr. Robert Budd. You're splitting your time. So I've got Mr. Robert Budd wants 2 minutes. So do you want to go first? Yeah. Okay.
The New Inn is one of only 2 community facilities in Houndsdown, serving Ashurst Bridge, Houndsdown, Rushington Manor. No nearby pubs, especially for older residents. The pub has long supported local communities, hosting events such as Santa Meeting, children, Easter egg hunts, charity fundraisers, and providing a defibrillator with 24/7 access. With 17 new properties planning nearby, it could thrive, as it has done for the last 130 years. So, for the sake of the community, I urge you to refuse. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Pass over to yourself now. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Budd. Historical accounts of the New Inn are that parts of the building date back to the 18th century, 1750 in fact, and it's been a public house as now since 1894. The pub is more than bricks and mortar. It's a living, breathing part of the community's social fabric, and to convert it fully into housing would be to erase a vital space that fosters connection, inclusion and local identity. Community pubs are vanishing across the UK at a scary rate. The New Inn is one of the few remaining gathering places in Houndsdown where people of all ages and backgrounds can meet informally. It's just community. Yes, we need housing, but Punch Estates have earmarked the site for the development years ago. The application is lazy and purely geared towards profitability with absolutely no thought for the damage it will cause to the local community. Punch believe that through a lack of investment, they would be able to prove the pub was non-viable and therefore force planning into approving the application. The facts are that a local architect has made clear that due to the size of the site, there is ample scope to maintain half the building as a pub, whilst providing a minimum of 2 flats in the current building and a further development to the rear, utilising half of the large pub garden, housing and a pub. If the New Inn was a pub serving food using good local produce, it would be incredibly successful, bearing in mind it's the only facility left in the local area. Access and parking could be via Jacobs Walk, the same road suggested for the 70-home Wimpey development. It would seem to me absolutely incredible, bearing in mind the size of the catchment area and all the local development being proposed, that the only pub in the area be turned into housing in its entirety. As a planning group, you have a really rare opportunity to have your cake and eat it, by retaining the pub and allowing development on the site as described above. On this basis, this application, I believe, must be refused with the suggestion that Punch go off and do their job properly and come back with an application that utilises the site more effectively, providing housing whilst keeping the building, part of the building as a public house, i.e. serving the community as well as their own profits.
Thank you very much. Members, Mr. Budd's alternative suggestion can't be taken into consideration. We're looking at the application as it stands here today. So, do we have any questions, please? Councillor Richards. Oh, he's still here. Sorry, Councillor Harrison, you have 3 minutes.
Chairman, I've been told I can speak as long as I wish. Which is the greatest gift I've ever been given. I'm not going to abuse the privilege, Chairman. National Policy Framework 2023, loss of a community facility is a material planning consideration. You can reject this application. You will have noted the strength of local opposition. Just this week, I attended an exhibition from Taylor Wimpey, which members won't know about, but there is a proposal to develop 70 houses at the back of this pub. That is 140 extra potential customers for this public house. The viability study, which has been referred to, does not take that into account. Chairman, a sociologist would describe a facility like this as a third place. It is not a place of work, it is not a home, it is one of those vital areas where people can talk to one another, engage and mix, which is, I think, what we should all be about. Hounsdown is a village cut off from the rest of Totton by a dual carriageway, the A35, and another dual carriageway, the A326. This is the only pub in the village. In my time, Totton has lost 5 or 6 pubs. The ones we have left become critically important. Hounsdown Community Centre and indeed Colbury Memorial Hall are not substitutes for a pub. If you go and visit these places, you will see that they have things like dog obedience classes, scouts, guides, singers, bingo, Totton U3A. These are all activities. There are places of activities. They are not pubs where people can go along, chill out and have a drink. I do take issue with the viability study, which suggests it would cost £435,000 to refurbish this pub. I rather doubt the accuracy of that. I think it's been grossly exaggerated to make it look like this is a dilapidated building, which is not. Chairman, reject the application today. Give the New Inn a chance. Once gone, it will never return. Hounsdown will greatly mourn the loss.
Thank you very much. We will now go to questions, and I had Councillor Richards.
This is a question, not sure to who to, maybe to anyone who can answer it. Has any thought been given, or has any attempt been made before to register this as an asset of community value, so that the community might be given a chance to run it as a community pub?
If I step in initially then, in terms of the ACV, historically we haven't had an application for its designation as an ACV, so that hasn't formed part of our considerations to date.
Councillor Frampton.
Oh yeah, a question of Councillor Harrison. Obviously so passionate about this being a community asset. Why hasn't it been registered as a community asset by the community?
I think it's still possible to do so. If the planning committee is today so minded to give it a chance, then I think it's perfectly possible it has. Maybe I've slipped up and missed a trick here, but I always felt that planning is separate from the registration of a community asset, and I might be wrong about that, but certainly if you were to give this an opportunity, I'd be more than happy to try and get it registered as such.
Councillor Frampton.
If I could come back then, and probably a question of officers or maybe even legal. So, irrespective of what we do with this application today, if we were to approve it, could the community still come in and register it as a community asset and stop that from happening?
I'll give you legal here.
The application has been made at this particular moment in time, and the planning application is before you to consider it on the paper.
That wasn't my question. Irrespective of what we do with this today, and not prejudicing it one way or the other, if we did give it, could, in law, a community still come in and register it at a later date and still preserve it? Is that higher up the sort of the ladder, as it were, than us giving a usage?
I can't confirm whether it would. They certainly would be entitled to make an application. Whether it would, the fact that the planning had been determined would count against it, I can't confirm.
Yeah, I think we have to steer away from speculation of what could be or might happen. We need to stick with the application as it is in front of us. Councillor Davis.
My issue is, in terms of the planning side of it, is I can't see a justifiable planning reason to reject. At least that's not been presented, but that's probably an obvious reason. So in terms of the planning balance, could you just outline the planning balance again that you have made in terms of coming to your recommendation?
This is in the report, so it's in the final planning balance is in the conclusion on page 61, and then obviously I've set out in the section regarding the loss of the public house on page 52 to 55. Obviously I've noted it's a public facility that has been well supported by the community in terms of the amount of objections that we've received, but then on balance we've had the viability report and the marketing assessment, which is giving that different perspective. So I've had to weigh up those considerations, which is, as I said, set out in the conclusion.
Councillor Hawkins.
I would like to reconstitute the pub personally, because you're taking away a facility for people to relax, chill, and talk to each other instead of looking at their phones. And I think it would be disastrous if we let this one go.
Can I ask the planner, has the suggestion by Councillor Harrison that there's a new estate being built there, has this been taken into consideration in the tilted balance?
This hasn't been taken into consideration, no. It's an allocated site for development. It was allocated in the local plan part 2, but we haven't had a forthcoming application as yet.
Yeah, as I said, we can't look at what might happen in the future. We have to look at it as it stands now. Are there any other questions? In that case, we're going to debate. Councillor Frank.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I looked up earlier on. In 2024, we were losing 6 pubs a week. 2025, we're losing 8 pubs a week. That's over 1 pub a day. Various reasons. Running costs, NI, and we can't force anybody to run a business that cannot make a profit. And certainly looking through the officer's balance, from a planning point of view, which is what we're looking at, there is nothing to say this is not a reasonable application. And that's what we have to look at. And what I was alluding to earlier on was that if there is such a feeling later on, then perhaps it's down to other parties to see if there's any other avenues, maybe in buying it. But anyway, looking at this, I cannot see any reason why we cannot approve it. And I will therefore propose the recommendation on the paper.
Thank you. Councillor Wade.
Chairman, thank you very much. First of all, I want to compliment the officer on a very detailed and comprehensive report, but I don't agree with it. Okay? It's not often I don't agree with Councillor Frampton, because he thinks it's very practical, but we don't have housing at any cost. Now, we do need houses. It's a fact we do. But I know Hounsdown. It's just down the road from Hythe and Dibden and Totnes. It's a community separated by the A35. I think Councillor Harrison said that, and the A36. We always complain we put housing developments in without infrastructure. We do that. And it covers across things, doctors, pubs, restaurants, shops, etc. Well, here, we're taking the infrastructure out and we're going to put some more houses in. That is not logical. Now, what planning consideration could you say? Because that's a very valid point that Councillor Hampton said. What we have to look is, and I'm sure that the officers can nuance the point I'm trying to make, is impact on the local community and environment. There is significant impact of the negativity on the local community. We can see that by the vast number of objections. But also looking at it realistically, are we expecting people to get in their cars, because you can't walk across the A35 very easily, and drive somewhere else to have a drink? We don't want people to drive to it, we want people to walk. There is a pub that will be in walking distance. Accepted, it needs to be developed, and possibly the opportunity of saving it will allow that development to take place, because we want to build houses in places where people want to live and they have the facilities around them to enjoy, community centres, pubs, shops, etc. Taking the only pub out and putting more houses in goes against improving the quality of life, improving the basis of what we should be doing in proper planning for New Forest residents who are there now and who will be there in the future. So I will definitely not be supporting this, and I will propose we reject the refusal. The refusal, I think palm expression, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
We already have a proposal on the
it's a
table.
counter proposal.
Councillor Sleep.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a real dilemma about this because the pub's been running since 1890s. The plan shows that the frontage of it, which I think is a very unusual and interesting design from the period way, would be retained. But I'm concerned about all these pubs disappearing, obviously as a trade. I mean, I've got a pub opposite me that they've just spent £800,000 on to try and change the clientele, which didn't work at all. The locals still use exactly the same, except they have to pay more for their beer. So that didn't work. So I understand the situation in public houses, but what concerns me is when you look at it, we've had 2,200 pubs gone since 2020, and I've done some due diligence on this. Punch Taverns Limited are actually owned by an investment company. And that investment company, obviously, is in business to make money. Now, all these pub sites quite often are on large areas, so if the trade is struggling a bit and you haven't got a real motivation in the pub business, you're looking at your investment sites and thinking, there's 10 houses that could go on there, and so the business goes. All my life in industry, I was getting my accountants to make the figures look as best as possible for me. So with due respect to our officers, I do get concerned about the figures that have been given to us. The other thing I've noticed on the pub opposite, with all this money being invested, is the young kids that were coming through to try and take ownership or become publicans aren't motivated anymore because they aren't given any financial motivation. If they were actually encouraged, the trade itself is struggling. So I feel really sad about that. I wouldn't want this pub to go. I've been in this garden 2 or 3 years ago watching live music and it was steaming. It was really a good company group. The only concern I had then was the neighbours would be disturbed by so much noise. But so it's not very long after COVID. It isn't owned by an investment group. I would suggest that the investment group look at their sites. They've closed 9. They've disposed of 9 in the first quarter since December 2024. What I would suggest they do is they look at their other sites and dispose of another one, because I think this one needs to be kept in our community a bit longer after COVID and given another chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything to say? Councillor Woods.
Yeah, I think there's a danger of acting in haste here. Obviously, as Councillor Sleeper has mentioned, there are very good reasons why in the future this pub might well take off again. And of course, if the government changes in the up-and-coming budget, things might change there as well. So I think there's a danger of acting in haste and not giving this pub a chance.
Thank you. Councillor Davies.
I think Councillor Dowd was first.
Oh, okay. Councillor Dowd.
Age before beauty.
Okay.
In that case, worth a shot. I was just going to say, one of the things I have noticed in this is that I can't find any details in terms of sewer connections and sewage. In terms of drainage itself, we've had issues in other parts of the forest with misconnected sewer from developments, from small-scale developments. And I am worried that I haven't seen a a detailed plan on how this particular issue would be prevented here. If you can comment on that, that'd be great, but obviously it's not a question. That is my concern at this location, is these small-scale developments can struggle when it comes to proper development control. I'm not a big fan of the outline, but I take on board the comments made by other councillors and the members of the public regarding the loss of the pub. Clearly, it's a much-loved community asset, and if it can be kept, I think it should be. So I think I am now leaning more towards refusal, especially given the lack of detail, as far as I can see it, of the drainage.
Now we go to Councillor Dowd.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is one of those balancing issues, and I'm afraid that the inescapable fact is the change of people's free time, what they do, and we inevitably there are pubs that do struggle because of a loss of clientele in the area. Where you've got an issue where a pub is in an area and it is, as the crow flies, there are other venues that people could get to. The practicalities of that, with the route to there, makes it unattractive for people to do so. I think we do have to think very carefully about, is this the right decision in this place? And I have to say, I'm really struggling with the balance here, because you can't wish a pub to succeed if the income is deteriorating year in, year out. On the other hand, once it's gone, as has been said earlier, that is lost to the community, and that is a real consideration. So lots to balance here. Thank you.
Councillor Richards.
The asset of community value designation relates to the community right to bid, which is the right to bid on something which is for sale. So if this pub is no longer for sale because it's being redeveloped for housing, then I don't believe that the community right to bid even applies. So I think that's maybe something to take into consideration. Also, I agree that a village hall is not going to take the place of a pub. So I think that's irrelevant, really, to say that the village hall is a consideration. And yes, maybe the viability study has not taken into account all the relevant information regarding the new houses. So I would be inclined to refuse this application.
Councillor Riley.
Since COVID, pubs have been closing continually over the years. Now, the local community here have the opportunity to buy that pub. Why don't they buy it? You know, that is what they could do if they're so desperate to keep it. You know, we all start crying when these places close, but we do not support them when they're open. You know, that's the point. And I live in a village, and there's 5 or 6 pubs there, and 3 of them are on their knees. And the community said, well, should we buy it? You know, that is the choice they've got. And I know it's a lovely pub. They've tried hard for years to make it work, and it's quite well populated around there. Why haven't people used it? So that's where we are. You know, and I will support Councillor Frampton's proposal that we go with the recommendation.
You seconding it then? Councillor Sleep.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to add that the pub existed a long time before the elevated road was put up. So what we had is a situation where, as a presentation, it doesn't view itself very well from the road. So the drive-by situation is not as good as it would be for other pubs. But that doesn't detract from our local community using it and needing it. And can I say that the private entertainment, or the shows and things that used to go on there all the time, were actually community backed, and there was always a good crowd when we were there. So I just got this instinct that if we give it more time, it would pick up again. And I would just like perhaps the investment group to look somewhere else to shut one day, not this one.
Councillor Wade.
Mr. Chairman, as we have a proposal and a seconder, Do we have to vote on that before I put in a counter proposal? Just want to clarify that because I will do.
I mean, this is a terribly sad situation to keep seeing these pubs closed, but the nature of pubs has changed so much. I mean, I can remember, as probably most of you can, when they were for drinking and smoking and you couldn't get in for the clouds of smoke. Now families want eating venues, and that takes a lot of investment. So it is hard to see them close down. It is a balance. Does anybody else have anything to say? In that case, I'll come back to the speakers. So we have Mr. Russell. You'll have 1 minute to respond.
Thank you, Chair. I think one of the things I'd like to address, which perhaps wasn't picked up on in the debate, is the fact that the discussion around ACV, for example, which gives the local community the opportunity to buy the pub. The pub has been on the market for 11 months. There's been ample opportunity for an interested party to come forward and buy the pub if they chose to do so. And I think the reason why no interested party has come forward is because anybody that goes to look at the pub, goes to view it, will understand that it's not a viable long-term business. I think the point the Chair has made about covers for people to go and eat is an important one, and that was one of the costs attributed in the viability report. That's where part of this 400k investment comes from. If the pub doesn't have sufficient covers to deliver a lot of food to customers, then it cannot compete in the current market. So I think to be really boring, we have to relate this back to policy DM19, and it specifically says if a pub can be proven not to be viable, then the change of use is acceptable. There's no requirement for us to market the pub as we have done, but we have done in the best interest of trying to find a new operator. So I think to take it back to a purely policy basis, there is no justification to refuse the application. Thank you. I've gone over a little bit, but thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gomez or Mr. Budd, you have 1 minute to respond.
I'm saying there are alternatives by refusing this application. Two, one of the major reasons for the lack of investment is the lack of parking out the front. If you were to allow parking at the back, then there would be a serious change to its viability. And three, the reason for this misnomer about the viability is the fact that Punch have allowed this pub to be run, shall we say, as a non-profit-making facility for a number of years, and anyone who uses it will understand that. And if it were changed and made into, as I put it, a foodie pub with experts who understood the pub trade, people talk about us buying it. I don't know the pub trade, but people who did could make that a seriously viable pub. But this has been earmarked for development for years, hence it's been left since 2015 with a landlord in there, and I don't want to be personal, but with respect, wasn't interested in building the pub in any way. When there have been community days, it's been packed, but they've been inconsistent.
Thank you very much. Councillor Harrison, you have a minute to respond.
Well, thank you, Chairman. It's been a really, really good debate. I'm not sure which way it's going to go, to be honest. One councillor said earlier on, I don't know on what basis we can go against the officer's recommendation. It's a really straightforward one, and I alluded to this at the start of my speech. It is that this, the fact that it's a community asset, a community facility, is a material consideration, and you can go against the officer's recommendation on that ground alone. I think we've heard some really good points. Punch are acting very much like vultures here. It is all about making profits and investment. It is going against the community interest, and I think we as councillors should always prioritise community interest. This pub could be a success. Give it a chance.
Thank you all for your contribution. We now go to the vote. So the recommendation is to grant to the service manager, and that's been proposed by Councillor Frampton and seconded by Councillor Riley. Can we now go to the electronic vote? Thank you. Two more, I think. I think there's two more. 13. So you have voted against the recommendation. Sorry.
Chairman, sorry, if I can just step in before
Okay.
people leave. You have a recommendation before you, which was to grant planning permission. That recommendation has failed. So the application still needs a decision, and it needs, I would suggest, an alternative recommendation, as Councillor Wade did hint at earlier.
Councillor Wade.
I propose we reject the application for planning permission based on policy ENV3, that it negatively affects the amenity of the existing area and the community.
Chairman, if I can help. I think I understand Councillor Wade's point, and in the debate you talked about how it could relate to the community feeling. My advice to you as a planning committee, I'm not sure that's really going to be a robust enough reason in terms of defending a potential appeal. I would suggest if you are looking at reasons and policies, you go back to your policy DM19. DM19 specifically looks at local shops and public houses. There's narrative in your report from your case officer in terms of why the recommendation was, but the second part of that policy looks at development proposals that result in the loss of public houses will not be permitted where the proposal would result in the loss of an important local facility. I think that's your planning hook in terms of what people have said in the debate this afternoon or this morning. The local ward member also took you to the NPPF. Paragraph 88 of the framework talks about development decisions enabling the retention of public houses. So there is a hook in your national guidance as well.
Chairman, can I thank you, Mr Watt, for giving that very intelligent and thoughtful contribution to my reason for refusing this proposal. Thank you. I can put that in.
Councillor Davis.
Happy to second.
Councillor Hawkins.
No, I was going to say the same.
Mark again. So do we vote on the vote now?
Chairman, I've got two more points that I might have to look at your proposer and seconder for in terms of your reasons for refusal. The first bit, I'm going to jump into your report, page 54. The first main paragraph, but the second part of that report there, you'll see that one of the policy tests in the concluding sentence of DM19 is also about looking at alternative uses, alternative business or employment uses or community uses. And there's an acknowledgement there in that paragraph on page 54 that the application doesn't quite grapple with that particular point. So you might want to add that in to your narrative with regards to policy DM19. And also, I would suggest that at the moment, the habitat mitigation normally secured by section 106 has not been secured. So you may, I would suggest you need a second reason about the lack of a 106.
Chairman, in the interest of producing appropriate and full reasons for refusing the application, can I once again respectfully thank the officer for providing the extra reasons behind that, because we will lose employment because people are employed in pubs. I'm not sure actually how many, but there will be a number, and that employment will go. And there's the point about habitat as well. There's just a whole plethora of reasons to strengthen the case for objection. Thank you.
I'm happy with that, likewise as seconder.
Okay, so we now go back to another vote for a recommendation of refusal, which has been proposed by Councillor Wade and seconded by Councillor Davies. Correct? We go to the vote now. Thank you. Members, before you leave,